Hello, welcome to this hopefully fairly informative and short presentation on CFA. My name is Simon Holohan and I'm the head of CFA here at Fitch Learning. Now we have a pretty international audience that's dialed in for this session, so for some of you I'd like to say good morning, for others good afternoon, and for the rest good evening. Right? So the point of this session is to a little bit touch on CFA, although generally speaking people at this stage probably have done a bit of research on CFA, but the other part is really to almost put you off CFA, because if I can convince you and not convince you, if I can help you go into it with your eyes fully open so you're absolutely certain it's the right thing for you, then we're going to have a much happier relationship. What I don't want you to do is to go into it half-hearted. So although we have, okay, it's a bit cheesy, but we have a strapline here on the opening slide. It's a really important strapline. So if you commit to CFA, then we will commit to you. And the key word there is commit. CFA is not easy. I've been through it. I had to work very hard. It does require absolute commitment. So hopefully I'll give you a flavour as to what kind of things you have to do, and give you some pointers as to the kind of things you should avoid if you want to maximise your chance of passing, and then have a little chat about how we at Fitch Learning can help you succeed. So let's start with a very, hopefully very high level, just look at the CFA qualification. So it's a professional qualification, so obviously it's aimed at investment professionals. It's not meant to be academic, nor is it actually vocational, in that it doesn't really teach you to do any particular job. It's pretty broad, which I think is very much the strength of the qualification, but it is very much aimed at plugging the gaps in the knowledge of those of us who work in the industry. Right? It's a global qualification. It's well regarded. In fact, it's often called the global standard in terms of or the gold standard. I mean, it's a benchmark which many other qualifications reference to. Regulators know it. Regulators like it. Depending on which country you're in, you may well get a regulatory waiver in terms of demonstrating competence. The CFA may be sufficient. So there's loads of benefits for it. It has a very, very strong ethical framework. Ethics is an integral part of CFA at all three levels. And I know for many employers, it's one of the key reasons to sponsor people to go through CFA. Obviously, you'll increase your knowledge. It won't necessarily make you a better person. I think it'll make you a more rounded person. It'll, I guess, help you avoid ambushes. We've all been in meetings where suddenly the client switches the point of attack and asks a question completely sort of left field, and you're thinking, how do I answer? Well, CFA will give you that breadth of knowledge, and I'm pretty confident you'll be able to deal with most questions and maintain your credibility. But it won't make you an expert in any one area. So it's a general qualification and not an expert one. Now, let's just get I guess the biggest aspect out of the way, the most common question that I and my team here get asked, and that is, how many hours do we have to study to pass CFA? Now, the CF Institute recommend approximately 300 hours. Now, is that going to be enough? Is that too much? Too little? I don't know. It depends on you and your background. All I know is from my own background, when I did level 1, long time ago now, but it hasn't changed that much, I came into it from an economics and quants background. So thinking about the CFA curriculum, probably it's 30–35%, maybe 40% max of the curriculum, I would say I was pretty strong on, expert level. So that left about 60-ish % to study. And it took me under 200 hours, if I'm honest, probably about 180 hours to cover that missing part. And that's what worked for me for level 1. For level 2, I absolutely did more than 300 hours, probably 350, 360 hours. Level 2 I found by far the most technically challenging of the 3 levels. Back to level 3, somewhere in between. Level 3 It's not technically demanding, it's very interesting. It really brings together what you have learnt up to that point. And I reckon I probably did about 250-ish hours. So I think looking back over my CFA experience, if you took an average of that, it probably comes out pretty close to 300 hours per level. Certainly somewhere in the 250 to 300. So that's my experience. You've all got different backgrounds, different abilities, strengths and weaknesses. But I think if you go into CFA saying, okay, let's plan for 300 hours, that's a sensible, realistic target. Right? And that will really help you then think about your study plan. Because if we take 300 hours, and obviously the exam date is a fixed point in time, when you start studying, okay, that's down to you. You can change that date. But then once you've decided to start, you can do the math, and you can think, okay, well, how many weeks are left? And if I've got to do 300 hours across X weeks, you can start to work out how many hours you have to average per week. And then ask yourself that question, that honest question, can you do those hours? Do you literally have that time in your life to do 10 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours, whatever it happens to be per week? You know, think about how you'll do that studying. You know, are you going to be able to study in the evening? You know, can you leave your desk at a reasonable hour and still be awake enough to do a few hours studying? Are you going to do it in the morning before work? Are you going to do it at the weekends? If you're doing it at the weekends, obviously you're limited as to how many hours are available there. So you've got to be quite honest and have a good reflection about when you're going to start, how does that work out in terms of hours per week, and are you actually going to find that time? For most people, I guess they start off in the first sort of month or so doing about 10 hours a week, and they gradually build it up, you know, 12 hours, 15 hours, etc. And then maybe once we get towards the last month, probably getting up to about 20 hours a week. But it certainly does take a long inward glance at yourself and your workload in terms of, you know, can you actually find that time? Yeah? You know, talk to your colleagues, talk to your line manager, get their support and buy-in. That's probably the biggest advice I can give you. Because if your colleagues around you know you're studying for CFA, you won't get so much flack if you leave the office at sort of 6 or 7, because they're thinking, okay, he's got another couple of hours to do studying. If you don't discuss it, then it's quite hard to leave your desk early-ish, because people will just assume that you're going part-time. Anyway, so please have a think about the hours you have to study. Okay. Now, a quick chat about the CFA curriculum. As you can see here, it's pretty broad. And as I mentioned earlier, this, in my opinion, is absolutely the strength of CFA. And it was my motivation for doing it. You know, as I said, I had an economics background, I was strong in quants, and there were parts of what an investment bank does, absolutely, I was all over. But there's loads of it I had no idea. And not just an investment bank, also the buy side. You know, I did not come from a buy side background. So if someone had asked me, you know, 15, 20 years, 30 years ago, blimey, time flies. If someone had asked me back then, portfolio management, I'd have said, portfolio what? You know, ask me about a bond, fine. You know, pricing, valuing, bonds, derivatives, fine. Ask me about quants, fine. But portfolio management, you know, corporate finance, these were terms I simply didn't know. So the breadth is, to me, the attractive part. You can see, as I mentioned earlier, that ethics is a common theme. It's not the only common theme. I mean, portfolio management is also common, but ethics is a common and pretty key theme. And certainly levels 1 and 2, it's a relatively high weighting there. I won't dwell too much about the exam. I mean, you can see here from the slide there are subtle differences in terms of how it's tested. All right? But certainly, if you need more information, please contact us. Okay. But the breadth is the key I want to highlight here. And it's not just the breadth. It is clearly a technical curriculum. It's a rigorous curriculum, and it's highly relevant. You know, every year they send out a survey to all charter holders, and they also talk to people, you know, non-charter holders, but contacts in various financial institutions. And they basically ask collectively, is the curriculum relevant? So the curriculum does evolve, it should be relevant, and I think once you've gone through it, you'll look back and think, blimey, I really learnt a lot. And I hope that you'll be really proud of what you have learned. I certainly am. Now, the pass rates, global pass rates. doesn't make for very good reading if you look at the numbers here. So level 1, around about 40-ish% pass. You'll find the pass rates do vary a little bit. In recent years it's been as low as sort of 36%. 43 is reasonably towards the top end of the range. So it averages about 40% for level 1. Of those that pass level 1, again 40-ish% get through level 2. It's normally a tad lower than 47, but not far out. And then of those who get through level 1 and get through level 2, you can see here only 54% pass level 3. The level 3 one actually is the one that has not really been that stable. Levels 1 and 2 have been around the 40-ish% now for several years. Level 3, it's very much a downward trajectory. When I did level 3, I mean, again, we're talking a long time ago, I think the global pass rate was north of 70%. It really has come down over the years. Why? Well, my own thoughts is that over that time, the qualification has become more international. So when I did level 3, the vast majority of candidates were based in North America or Europe, and so the English language was less of a problem, less of a barrier. These days, there's huge growth elsewhere in the world, Asia, China, Middle East, Africa, massive growth outside of the traditional areas. And obviously with that, you have challenges of language. And the level 3 exam, the morning paper, is a written exam. So, trying to read and then write under supreme time pressure in a language that's not your first language, I don't know how people do it, quite frankly. I mean, I found level 3 the most time-pressured exam I'd ever done of any exam. And that's speaking as someone as an English speaker. So if I had to think in a foreign language, it's just really hard. And I think that explains the downward trend. It's really time-pressured level 3. Exam technique is vital. And again, for those of you who choose to study with Fitch Learning, we absolutely can help advise you about exam technique there. Now, perhaps I should have said at the beginning about Fitch Learning's pass rate. Our pass rates are not published. And that's because, as you can see here on the slide, we are a CFA Institute approved prep provider. We're one of only a handful of globally approved providers. And with that, we have certain rights and also certain responsibilities. So we have certain rights in that we have an open dialogue and good access to the institute and the people who make up the curriculum, etc. So we can have a good dialogue. We are consulted and given often advance warning of things that are changing. And we have access to past questions, say at level 3 past questions, which you as a candidate will not be given access. As a candidate, you have access the last 3 years. We can go back more than 3 years. So we have certain rights, but we have certain responsibilities. And the responsibility in particular is that we must not publish pass rates. So I would love to give you our pass rates, but unfortunately we're not able to. So yeah, it's a little bit about the exam. It's very broad, which is good. Pass rates, not so good. But remember, these are global. These are not people who've got the support of a company like Fitch Learning behind them. And also go back to the 300 hours. I think a lot of people start CFA not really believing it will take about 300 hours. So please, my advice is to go into it with your eyes open. Can you find 300 hours? If the answer is no, don't do CFA. Or if the answer is I can't find that time now, but maybe in a few months' time, then do level 1 in December. But really think about that structure of the time. And that brings us on neatly to the next slide about why those pass rates are so low. I have touched on some of these. I mentioned the lack of time, lack of hours, which might be because you started studying too late. We find it less of an issue, actually, if I'm honest, for the June exam. But for those of you who might be thinking about December, we often find as a psychological issue about starting studying, let's say, June or July. And often people think of it more like an academic year. Certainly in the Western world, the academic year will start in sort of September. So many people often don't start until September, which is really too late, to be honest. But the idea of starting in July seems weird. Whereas if you're doing the June exam, the idea of starting sort of January, early Feb seems perfectly normal. But anyway, that's a minor thing here. Working inefficiently. Okay, now I'll come on to this later on. Our online platform, Cognition, will absolutely help you optimize your time. Yeah, and I'll show you how in a moment. A lack of a study structure. Again, I'll talk about how Cognition will give you that structure. Okay, focusing on the wrong areas. We all do this. We're all guilty of it. Comfort revision. You know, we like to do questions on topics that we think we're going to get right. We get that warm glow when we get a question right, and we don't like it when we get a question wrong. You know, we get a bit stressed. So as such, we tend to skip over stuff we don't get. Well, that's fine, but it doesn't maximise your chance of passing the exam. So again, our Cognition platform has a really clever algorithm. Basically build a profile of you and keep a record of which topics you tend to do well, which topics tend to do badly, and guess what? It won't let you avoid those bad areas. So it will force you to focus on all the areas and not just focus on the areas you like. We mentioned exam technique as a factor, particularly at level 3, less of a factor at levels 1 and 2. Question practice, that's an obvious one there. So on our Cognition platform for level 1, we have it broken down to basically two parts. The learning part, as the name suggests, where you build that knowledge, that content. And then we have the review part, is where you then just keep on testing yourself in terms of, you know, doing mock exams, etc. Well, just in the learn part, there are 3,500 questions to help you learn and remember the facts. So tons of questions. In the review part, again, you'll find thousands of questions. There's 5 full mock exams. There's a question generator tool. There's workshop questions. So you're not going to be short of questions, put it that way. So we're going to go through, if you don't mind, just a brief overview of our Cognition platform, which will help you understand how to avoid some of these problems and how myself and my team can support you. In fact, I do want to talk about the team. I'm very lucky to have a fantastic team, colleagues that help and support the CFA product, and my colleagues are all over the world. So we do have most time zones covered. And we're a very experienced team. Right. So, you know, hopefully you will meet some of us. It could be virtually like this, maybe in person, or you may just email us, and hopefully you'll get that help from my colleagues. Okay, let's have a quick then drill into what we can do at Fitch Learning and our product. So I mentioned how we have this global faculty. It is a very experienced faculty. I was tossing up the other day amongst the CFA instructors here in London how many years of experience we have, and it came to about 100 years, in fact just over 100 years of experience collectively of teaching CFA. And that's just London. So we, as a company, we've been going for about 20 years, and we train several thousand candidates a year. I myself have been teaching people for CFA for about 20 years as well. Now, this experience is pretty important, and people don't always realise the importance of this experience. You've got the curriculum. I'm sure you've seen the curriculum. You can check what's in there, and that's great. Yeah. But what you don't know, if this is the first time you've done CFA, is how that curriculum has changed. Now, because me and my colleagues have been doing this for a very long time, you can probably tell by the wrinkles and the lack of hair, we've done it for a very, very long time. It means that every year we can see what topics stay in the curriculum and what topics come out. And if a topic has stayed in the curriculum year after year after year after year, well, that's the examiner giving a really strong clue as saying that topic is absolutely non-negotiable. Every charter holder, whether you get your charter in 1 year or the next year, everyone needs to know this kind of foundation core material. And that's where our experience comes in, because we've seen over the years this core material. And we can then advise you on that and say, look, yes, you've got to study all of it, but you absolutely must study the core part. It's really important. So hopefully me and my colleagues can help you there. We do have offices around the world, as you can see here, so if you're in that locality, you know, feel free to pop in, and I'm sure we can help you. Okay, let's have a quick look at the process then. So start with a plan, a schedule. Okay, so again, we can, the Cognition platform will create a tailor-made plan. So it'll be a plan for you and just for you. Right? And that will help you kind of manage your workload. And again, part of our experience as instructors, we have an idea as to how long it should take you. So we kind of know that you know, topic X should take 15 hours of study. So then the schedule can build it in and say, okay, 15 hours of study. The learn part I briefly mentioned, we'll come on to that in a moment. That's a really clever part of the website. It's a really clever algorithm that builds a profile on you and works out what you know and what you don't know. So we'll talk about the learn part. The learn part will take most of your time. You know, that's getting under your belt all of that key knowledge, okay, and doing questions to reinforce it. The progress part is where you kind of just review how you're doing. We'll have a little chat. And then the review part is where you start doing mock exams. And you're really looking at exam standard, exam timings, and trying to kind of really get near to that level you need to pass. Okay. So let's have a quick look. I've grabbed some screenshots from the Cognition platform. This was a Cognition platform which I grabbed before Christmas. So not a lot has been done on it, but it gives you a flavour as to what you would see if you have Cognition. So we start with the schedule part of the plan. Now, in fact, I should say at the top of the page of all sections of the platform, there's this kind of banner part which doesn't change, and it gives you a constant reminder as to what you have done, how many days are left. So here you've got the number of days to the exam. Okay, it says 249. So when was that? Oh, that must have been you know, towards sort of Q3 of last year then. Yeah. So 249. It shows you the number of readings that you have completed. So readings completed, and then readings remaining. So it gives you a very simple visual glance. So, the other sections refer to things like knowledge checks. I'll talk about those in a second. Right, but anyway, there's my plan. Now, it's a tailor-made plan. So there's dates. Now again, you probably can't see this on the screen. You may be able to expand the screen later, but I can assure you, just here, if I highlight it for us, there's some dates, start and end dates. Now the end date, that's given, that's the exam date, so you can't change that. And we can't change that. Even Fitch Learning, we can't change the exam date. But you can change the start date. So you can plug in when you want to start. And then the plan will take over. Say, okay, well, you know, given you're starting this date and given you have to finish and get in the hours by this date, it will slice up the hours into the available weeks and say, therefore, you need to finish this topic by this point. So it'll create this kind of Outlook diary type thing. It's color-coded. Here, you've got obviously loads and loads of the same color because this is showing the calendar for May. And in May, what you should be doing is just revision, review work, mock exams, that kind of stuff. But if you were to look at, say, in January, it might say quants or FRA, and it will give you, hopefully, a realistic plan as to what to do and when. So there's the schedule part there. Okay. I personally prefer it in this format, a kind of a diary format. There actually, you can do it as a list format. There's a little thing, it says list, where it's being like an itemized bit. But anyway, most people like the diary bit. Now, the really clever bit, as I said, is the learn part. So again, you can see at the top, that top banner stays the same, so you're always reminded how many days are left, etc. Okay. So we have here the topics, you know, the big topics. There are 10 kind of big topics: ethics, FRA, quants, etc. You can click on a topic. Right? Now here we're going to click on a topic, and it's ethics and professional standards. Okay, and when you click on that topic, it gives you some information about number of readings in there, study sessions, etc. So if I click on that topic there, it opens up another tree that shows the study sessions. Okay, and then you may see some little boxes on the right-hand side there. That's basically showing the amount of work that's underneath or in the portal that will cover that particular study session. And if the box is green, that's good. Green is good. We like green. Let's go green. Green is good. If the box is orange, it means it's kind of work in progress. It means you've started but haven't finished. Right? Basically, green is good, orange is okay, could do better. Red in the portal is a bad colour. That means you're below standard, or you haven't even started, that kind of stuff. So green is good. So this person here has made a pretty good start on ethics. It's green now. So there's a kind of the visual, the first level. Let's now assume we're going to drill in to one of those areas. So next slide here. Blimey, it's small font. Okay, here we're going to drill in to, it looks like a bit about FRA. Okay, so when you drill in, you see you've gone to the topic, financial report analysis. It takes you into that little tree, and it gives you information there. You can click on that tree, it takes you here. Now the first column we have is showing us the study sessions. If I put SS, the study sessions. Right? So here it's showing that there are 3, it looks like, study sessions. Okay, so study session. Then we have the next column breaks those study sessions down into readings. I'm sure you're familiar with the terminology, readings, yeah? So that's kind of as per CF Institute, kind of how their curriculum is broken down. Yeah, reading study sessions. Then what we do is we do something slightly different. We then break it down by concepts. We don't break it down, let's say, by learning outcome statements, because often the learning outcome statement can be incredibly complicated. Yeah, they can be involving multiple concepts, and it ends up creating too big a chunk of knowledge. So we break it down by concepts. You know. So a concept could be as simple as discounting using continuous compounding. That could be a concept. Yeah. And then the final column is what we call atoms, where we take a concept and we say, okay, what is if we break it down to almost the DNA level, what do you actually have to do? What do you have to master? What skills do you have to do in order to master that concept? So, for example, you wanted to do a present value calculation using continuous compounding. Well, okay, you have to know how to do your calculator setup. You've got to know what continuous compounding is. You've got to obviously know what present value means. You can break it right down. So these atoms is where you break it down to very, very small, granular bits of information. I think it's a fantastic way of doing it. And let's face it, if you're teaching kids, I've got kids, some of you may have kids. If you're teaching kids something, you don't teach them the whole thing in one go. You break it down. You start with small things and you add from there. And kids are fantastic learners. They learn far faster than you and I do. And it always surprised me that as adults, we know how kids learn and we know they learn fast, and yet we don't seem to then replicate that in our adult life. Well, this is what we've done. We have tried to copy how kids learn. So we're breaking it down. So you'll find videos which would be maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes, that kind of length. Small bite-sized videos. So maybe a little video on what present value means. Little video. Then there'd be 2, 3 questions. Very focused, specific questions on that video. Just to kind of reinforce the knowledge. Then move on to another video. Maybe a video on continuous compounding. What is E? That kind of stuff. So you've got very small, bite-sized videos. So no one can say they haven't got time to study. If you've got 2 minutes, you can study. Okay. I think the longest video at level 1 is about 2 minutes. Right? So you have the atoms. So you go through these atoms, which it depends on the concept. It could be 2 atoms, it could be 10 atoms. But you go through these atoms, and that builds up a concept. And this will happen for the variety of concepts. So you've got these concepts done. Once you've done a few concepts, we're then going to test it with a knowledge check. I'll do KC. This is the clever part here. So while you're doing those atoms and doing those questions, there's an algorithm running behind. That's kind of keeping an eye on what you're doing. Keeping an eye on the questions you got right, you got wrong. It also actually keeps a track on how long it took you to do it. So it really keeps a close eye on your performance. So it already starts to build a profile about you. And then when it says, okay, well, here we've got 3 concepts. Imagine in our question bank we have, 100 questions in total linked to those concepts. The knowledge check will think, okay, well, I don't have to give you all those questions. You know, if you can demonstrate proficiency in those concepts, we can move on and use your time in other areas. So it would basically give you a sample. The sample would be based on the profile it builds up. Okay? So imagine in those atoms you've got a couple of questions wrong, maybe involving your calculator. Well, you can guarantee your first few questions in the knowledge check would be on the calculator. Right? And it will try and sort of make sure that you can reach a level of proficiency. Now, how many questions you have to answer will depends on your profile. You know, a candidate who's got every question correct in the atom section may well actually pass a knowledge check by doing, I don't know, a dozen questions. Someone who hasn't done quite so well and possibly also gets some questions wrong while doing the knowledge check may have to do 20. Someone does 25. So basically, knowledge check is very much a tailored thing, very tailored, and it's trying to optimize your time. So it's a very, very clever algorithm. So in a way, if you're doing less questions in the knowledge check, that's a good thing. That means that you don't need to waste your time. Yeah, and let's face it, there's no point doing 20 questions on an area we know, getting 20 questions correct. Yes, we feel good, but we're probably wasting our time. We could have done maybe a sample of 5 questions, realize we know it very well, and move on. And that's the whole point about optimizing our time. Now, here we've only got 3 concepts shown and 1 knowledge check. In some study sessions and some readings, they're very complicated, so you may have many, many more concepts. You may find there's 12 concepts. Right? You're not going to have a knowledge check on 12 concepts. So again, we might find you've got 2 or 3 knowledge checks. You know. So you do a kind of mini, very clever test. Then once you've gone through those concepts and you've gone through all the knowledge checks and you've gone through all the readings, right, in a study session, well, guess what? You'll then do a study session test. All right? So we have a study session test here. Okay. Again, very similar. It'll kind of build a profile on you and give you a sample of questions. So it's a really, really clever bit of kit, and it should maximize your time. Yeah, and if you haven't got much time, you can still do something productive. And what's more, these atomized videos and these questions, you can download. If you have a tablet or smartphone, download them to your device and do it offline. You can do it in an aeroplane, do it in an underground train, whatever. There's no excuse for not doing some studying. Right? The knowledge checks, you'll find, some knowledge checks you'll complete in 15 minutes. You'll sail through. Others may take you 50 minutes. Again, if you find that you're making mistakes and you're not getting them right, just stop. In fact, if you get, I think, 5 questions wrong, we'll build a timeout here. And a little message says, look, do you really want to carry on? You know, perhaps you should go back here. You're getting these questions wrong. Go back and have a look. Anyway, you can always come out of the knowledge check and go back in. It'll remember where you got to. So don't feel you have to do, it's not all or nothing. So that learn part is, say, very, very, very clever. And the atomization is very clever. Progress, like a really good kind of overview, dashboard really. It's a very intuitive dashboard that shows how you're doing. Again, color-coded, remember, green is good, orange, okay, red's not so good. But here we've got, so fixed income looks like we're on track in that respect there. The circles are the various knowledge checks, okay. Now if the circle is orange, that's good, means we've done it, like a little gold badge, well done. If it's not orange, we haven't done it. So we can see if a fixed income, we've actually got 1 orange badge. So we've got a few. So although we've gone through the atoms and gone through the questions and we've actually covered the content, we haven't actually finished all the knowledge checks. Whereas in the next box, FRA, which is orange, it means actually we haven't quite finished the atoms and the questions are a bit overdue in terms of our plan. But we actually have done a few more knowledge checks. You know, so we can see most of these are orange. There's 1 actually which isn't. So it gives you a very simple depiction now. Again, that top banner stays up there, remember? So you're always reminded of how many days that deadline clicking on, and it kind of builds up your sense of panic as you get nearer to the exam. Okay. So you have the progress test here. So this part of the website will take you most of your studying. So if you're doing a June exam and you're starting to study back now, then obviously Jan, Feb, March, April probably will be learning and then looking at the progress. When you get to the end of April and May is when you should really be doing the final review part, stepping up to the mock exams. Okay. Again, we have different parts of the cognition platform. This is a study session test, so you can go onto a link that shows you all of those study session tests. It shows you your scores, it shows you how many attempts you have made, and you can attempt them as many times as you like. So here I've picked on a candidate who's attempted a study session test. It's a quants test, and we can see that they've attempted it 3 times. They got 35% in one, 30% in the other, and the most recent one 45. So not particularly good. In terms of their performance, you can see the bar is red. Red's not good. Green's good, not red. So not surprisingly, this candidate is red. It also then breaks down the components at a reading level as to what made up that test. So we can see that there were 4 readings where questions were dragged in to achieve that test. Okay. Now of those 4 readings, we did really bad on 3 of them because they're all red. We did slightly less bad on one of them where it's orange. So let's imagine that rather than orange, that reading was green. So what does it say? Probability concepts. Right, so just imagine that was green. And you're thinking, right, where should I focus my time? Well, clearly you should focus your time on the red areas. So you can do some more questions here. So if you were to click, let's say, on a reading, this opens up a question generator tool. Fantastic tool. And it basically says, okay, this reading, I can't read actually, but it says this reading is time value of money, I think. Do you want some more questions? You'll say yes. And it will say, what kind of questions do you want? Do you want any old questions on that reading? Do you want only questions that you've done before and got wrong? Or do you only want to do questions that you haven't seen before? Yeah, so yeah, you can control that. Or you can simply say, no, give me a new test. I'm rubbish at everything, like this candidate clearly is. Just give me a brand new test. Yeah. So it's a fantastic way of just doing question, question, question. And you can control what you target with that question generator. So really, really useful part here. Really useful. Okay. Also, we have loads of other help here. So we have videos, workshop videos, which cover everything from what's it going to be like on the day, so what's it going to feel like, the exam centre, to exam techniques. Also, there'll be review videos on the key topics. You've got calculator videos. You got tons of videos there. And then finally, right at the very end, obviously mock exams. So we've got 5 mock exams, full mocks, so 2 3-hour papers we have here. So there's a lot of resources here to help you. So hopefully you won't be part of those dismal stats on pass rates. Hopefully you will get through. Obviously this is not a comprehensive presentation. There's tons more. If you want to try out cognition, you can get a free demo on our website you can have a look at. And that way you can sort of explore the functionality. Okay. In terms of study options, and again, this will vary depending on where you are in the world. We have slight variations in different regions of the world, so please check our website for details. But generally speaking, we offer in most areas daytime classes, evening classes, weekend classes. We have sort of longish programs. We have short, intensive programs. We have programs that just focus on the exam, the revision part. That's very popular, where predominantly we're just doing question debrief, question debrief, question debrief, fast-paced, near the exam to really try and get you over that line. We mentioned the portal, the cognition platform. What I haven't spoken much about is the mobile app. So remember, you have an app which works on Android and Apple devices. So if you have a tablet or phone, you can, as I said before, you can download videos and watch them offline. You can be on an aeroplane. So there's no excuse for you not studying. All right. In fact, I remember just the other day I was on the Underground in the metro here in London, and I sat down and I saw someone next to me watching a video, and I kind of recognised the video. I recognised our colour scheme and the font, and I had a quick look over the shoulder, and not only that, but I recognised it was me on the video. And this poor person, while sat on the Underground train, was watching a video of me explaining US GAAP pension accounting. And they were so engrossed in their video that when I leaned over and waved at them, the poor person almost jumped out of their chair. Anyway, so if you want to watch me explain pension accounting while you are underground on a train, you can with that mobile app. You can do those questions offline. And then the moment you get into a Wi-Fi zone, it can sync to your portal, and all that data, that profile, will get onto your portal, and the algorithm will update what you've done. I wish I had this mobile app when I was doing CFA. The ability to have everything I need on a phone or tablet is fantastic. So that's for Apple and Android. Really useful, right? So yeah, please have a look on our website if you're interested in any sort of study options. Maybe just do the online. So the Cognition platform is phenomenally good and really effective at optimizing your time. So really remember, it forces you to do the stuff you don't know, and it kind of weans you off your strong areas. It still gives you a few questions to keep them up to date, but it stops you spending far too long on areas that you're going to get right anyway. Okay. Well, if I put you off CFA, then I guess that's good. I mean, I don't want you to start CFA unless you're committed. You have to commit. I want you to commit, and I and my colleagues will commit to you, and I want you to pass level 1. I want you to pass level 2. I want you to pass level 3. I want you to enjoy, embrace, and be proud of CFA. I don't want you to go into it half-hearted. If you don't put in the hours and the commitment, you will fail. And that's not enjoyable for you, it's not enjoyable for me. So please, remember, start off by asking yourself that question: can you find that time? How many hours can you realistically do? And that will determine when you start. Maybe you can only do 5 hours a week, in which case you're thinking, right, if I start in a few months' time, I could do December. Couldn't do June on 5 hours a week, but anyway, have that conversation. If you want to talk to one of our local learning advisors, there's some contact details on the next slide, but please give us a call. Or if you want to talk to me in person, please call, again, numbers you'll see on the next slide. Just ask for Simon. I'm the only Simon, actually, we have, which is quite unusual. Or just ask for the head of CFA, and I'll try and get back to you. You can see at the bottom a very important bit here about a discount. So if you want to book in the next week, you can get a nice, juicy discount. So if I haven't put you off and you still want to do CFA, then that's it, decision made. The Cognition platform is the best I've seen anywhere. I think you'll struggle to find a better interactive, intelligent platform that we have here. So hopefully you will commit. Hopefully you will pass CFA. And hopefully maybe in 3-4 years' time I can enjoy reading the FT and seeing your name in there as a newly, freshly minted charter holder. And that obviously gives me and my colleagues massive pride when we see people that we've coached right through the 3 levels become a charter holder. So I said, here are our contact details. For those in Europe, it's Steve and Evan in Americas. You can obviously find local numbers if you're anywhere else in the world on our website. So please reach out to us if you have any questions. My name is Simon Holohan. If you want to talk to me directly, please ask for contact details via these people here, or just call our switchboard and ask to speak to me. Well, hopefully this little chat has been useful. Hopefully I haven't put too many of you off. And if you're interested in CFA, then good luck, and hopefully I will see you in due course over the next few years. Anyway, thank you for listening. Bye-bye.